everybody? It's Dave here, and no Darren today. Darren had to go down to British Columbia, and because where he lives, going down to British Columbia sounds a little weird because all of us would have to go up. But anyways, I hope Darren's having a great time, and I appreciate his input into the show already. I would like to welcome everybody to the show. I see that Travis is here, Drewster is here, Doc is in the house, Anthony's here, Chuck's here, Raymond is in the house as well as Peter and Forlorn. Stephen Wright from Down Under, welcome all. And anybody else I miss, I apologize. It's a one-man show today, so we're going to get this thing rolling. Last week, we got Tua Tagovailoa raising a controversial stink over his former head coach and Vikings' current defensive coordinator, Brian Flores, calling him a, quote, terrible person. Well, yesterday, those exact words weren't used, as Mark Craig from the Minnesota Star Tribune interviewed Mike Zimmer and has talked about his end in Minnesota, but some might think so. We're going to break into that, pull that Band-Aid off, go through some of that pain together in our first segment. And then we're going to lock down the roster, just like happened this week by your Minnesota Vikings. There was a little bottom churn, and I'll describe what that is a little bit later. And we're going to get ready for week 1 of your NFL season when the Vikings travel to New York to play them in their retro uniforms. Should be interesting. Like to say hi to Northfius and Barber. Welcome to the show. Delton, good to see you. And then finally, in theme 3, we're going to be going over the 10 most important players to watch this season. Who of these 10, their success is the most key to the Vikings' success? All next on Two Old Bloggers. Let's rock! Vikings First and SKOL presents This Week in Vikings Land with Darren and Dave, your two old bloggers. And here I am again. And like I said, Darren is down in British Columbia. He had some family to visit, and he's getting warmed up for the season. He will be back with us on Saturday, because next Saturday is when Two Old Bloggers moves and becomes the pregame show of Vikings First and SKOL, where we break it all down and we look at the upcoming game, and we'll get into full season mode because it's going to be great. Anthony says he almost feels sorry for the Giants, but no, he doesn't. I wouldn't either. And if there's anybody I missed welcoming to the show, I apologize, but it happens. As this show, I titled Zimmer's Anger in the 2024 Vikings roster. It's the anger part that we're going to get into first. And many people didn't want to see it. I didn't want to see it this week. It's the last thing we need. We're all getting hyped up for the season, and Mark Craig dumps this on us. Well, we're going to find out next on theme 1 of Two Old Bloggers. And no music on that one, but that's okay. That's because I hit the wrong button. All right. Bitter and angry still. Sure sounded that way. Well, yesterday we had, let me open this up a little bit. Mark Craig from the Minnesota Star Tribune. And notice the new logo they rebranded this week or last week. He went down to Oxnard, California, where the Dallas Cowboys hold their training camp, and he got an interview with former head coach Mike Zimmer. Now, this is interesting. One, I'm curious, was he asked to do it? Did the paper say, hey, go try to get this story? Does he have a good relationship with Mike? And I think he does. That's why he got it. But with stuff that's coming out in today's press, Tyler talks about you got to verify it and get it from, true sources, that there may be ulterior motives to certain things. And wondering why this was published yesterday brings up questions of, what's the motivation behind this? How did it take place? Did Mark, go up to Mike and say, hey, I'd like to do an interview. Cool. Come over. Let's sit. Was there alcohol involved? What was it? What all drove the motivation of this piece and this piece now? I always wonder what's behind that, but that's just me. So let's get into it. We're going to be talking about Mike Zimmer's, the end of his tenure with the Vikings and how he responded. Zimmer was fired on January 10th, 2022. Along with general manager Rick Spielman, as we know, he described the feeling as being crushed and angry. We're going to get angry a lot in this episode after he was dismissed. And it goes on to tell a story. He didn't know what to do. Was he supposed to go up to HR, find some out-processing checklist, go grab his things, whatever? No, he just left. Because he didn't know. Nobody said. Jesus said, you're done. Of course, we got the story of, well, the Wilfs asked, do you want to talk to the team? And he flat out said, no, they got me fired. Okay. That's not how you treat your players, but okay. I understand being angry. People get angry sometimes, and for justifiable reasons. Well, we'll see. Now, his relationship with the players and staff, as we all heard, Eric Kendricks at the end said it was a fear-based culture. That's what drove all of this. It drove the change. And it very well could have been a fear-based culture. I've been unfortunate enough to work in some atmospheres that are that way. And I'm not talking about the Taliban or any of that sort of stuff. I'm talking about bosses that are just absolutely anal and not even anal, but just pure asses. And it's a shame that you are. And you're constantly, you don't like going to work. And I understand that from a player's point of view, that hey, my coach isn't even saying hi in the hallway. He's being mean. All that sort of stuff. You don't want to be there. Who wants a workplace like that? Well, that's what happened there at the end. And the Wolves made the right move. They got rid of him. And they also made the right move with getting rid of Spielman as well, in my opinion. But they did. Now, Mike Zimmer, obviously we know, sat at his ranch the last couple of years. And this year he's become the Dallas Cowboys defensive coordinator. He he is back to what he loves to do. So that's good for Mike. Eric Kendricks is obviously also a member of the Dallas Cowboys and was asked about this and how he deals with it. And he said, obviously, and this is a quote, obviously I'm familiar with the defense. I'm in the middle of things. I'm very comfortable. We have a lot of new stuff being implemented, which I'm excited about. Zim is very detailed. You know what he's expecting from you. It's about coming out and delivering that. Having a high expectation is never a bad thing, unquote. And that is true. It never is. But how it left and how it is now is different. Now, Eric was asked, how did you deal with Mike being there? And he said, well, we sat down and we talked. We talked it out, which is a very adult thing to do, by the way. And they got over it, and there was forgiveness and some understanding, hopefully, and everything's all copacetic and wonderful in Dallas, at least on the defensive side of the ball. Hopefully not on the offensive side, but at least on the defensive side. So that's cool. Too Evil to Hope, thank you for the super chat. Appreciate it. He says, bring back Zimmer. I don't know if it'll go over too well. Hey, and everybody knows me. I'm all for Mike Zimmer. Grandizer says, Dave, and what is bad is when you got a boss who wants to pick on certain employees because he thinks they can push them around. Yes, it's a bad workplace environment. Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons he got fired. You've got to, as much as I might like Zimmer, as much as I might think he's a good coach, he won a lot of games for Minnesota, did well, all that stuff. What happened at the end was almost inexcusable. You don't do that. Now, are there causes of that? That's what we're going to get into. There was at the end when he defended his record in front of the team and he listed off these stats and that stats and we're the best. We do this and we do that. Defending himself, trying to say, this is why, they should have kept him. Too Evil to Hope, did Zimmer give a fair chance? I thought so. We'll get into some of the things where Zim may have been a little bit backstabbed in certain places, but that's okay. Kellen Mond set him off, and Mond is out there today with a quote, saw it on Twitter today, that Mike never even talked to him, his peers and the players had zero respect. It's sounding like a hit piece to me. And any time I see a gangbang hit piece, it makes you wonder. But that's just me, because I tend to question a whole lot of things. He was hurt over the criticism by Terrence Newman. Terrence Newman had been with him 2 decades, believed in him, the whole works. He said, on the phone call, he says, I'm done with you, and he's gone. Well, something's wrong, Mike. When one of your own players who looked up to you, went with you, stuck by you, was your lieutenant in a lot of ways, and you bail on him. Now, there's definitely something wrong with that, and I hope he's restored that relationship since. I don't know that it's happened. There's only been 2.5 years time pass, and we'll see on that one. He got pissed off at Paul Allen. Turned around and then bought out Paul's half of his racing horse. Okay, I got you. Paul Allen does a 3-hour show a day. He's got to talk about the Vikings, and at the end, the Vikings seem to be a dysfunctional mess. And it came from the top down. That happens. So, Green Bay hippies, simmer down there. I don't know. This gets me fired up, Northfield. Like I said, I liked Mike. But this was, I think, Score North talked about opening up a vein and how this went together, where Mark Craig, as being the reporter, puts certain stuff in and leaves certain stuff out. You don't know what the whole deal was. It makes you wonder, but it is what it is. I agree with Mike being released. Now, the relationship with, well, I skipped a little bit on my notes. Zim's coaching style and philosophy obviously was at the heart of this. He comes from the Bill Parcells tree, the old school tree, the one where the coaches, they have no problem yelling at you and demanding a lot. That's what coaches were like. That's what coaches were like when I was started out. It is what it is. And you have current coach Mike McCarthy, and if he doesn't get his offense together, maybe former coach Mike McCarthy, hired Mike because he says he's a straight shooter, and he wants a straight shooter on the defense. And that's one thing that Mike most definitely was. He was a straight shooter. He didn't sugarcoat anything, especially when he felt slighted. And that was one of the flaws of Mike, is he'd get his dander up and he'd let it fly. It was great for us because we got to watch it. Gave tons of content, but you don't want that in a coach that's front-facing the fans and the public. That's why with Kevin O'Connell, you get the doublespeak, the blah, 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 talk for 20 minutes and not say a word. But it is what it is. Doc says, yeah, his time was definitely at the beginning and not at the end. And it's because the team needed that sort of, the coaching philosophy, the straight shooter, the disciplinarian, that type of coach he needed. Now, he believed in his players back then. Just watched an interview prior to the signing of Kirk Cousins, and we'll get to Kirk Cousins, where he's all about, hey, I'll coach without one eye, with one eye if I have to. I believe in my players. I want my players to succeed. I want the whole system to succeed for the fans, get Minnesota to where it needs to go. And that's how he was. But that brings us to Mike and Rick. And I think this is where it all starts to go down the toilet. One big old flush. Took a while. Took, 4 years, 3 years to happen. But it was one of those massive turds that happened. And it started down with the draft in 2021. Mike Zimmer came here in 2014, builds up that defense, which was worst in the league, and now we're winning games. And if you look at his pre-2021 record, it's outstanding, right? And he builds this up, brings in the only QB he absolutely loved in Teddy Bridgewater. They go on to just a chip shot field goal away from winning his first playoff game. And he builds up that defense to where it's a powerhouse. Best in the league. Well, by the time we get to 2021, the defense is already starting to be gutted. Because nobody's wanting to pay these people salary because they have a different plan in mind. We need to get the quarterback. We need to take that. And this has happened after 2017. We need to take that, get our quarterback to take us to the top. That's not what Mike wanted to do. He didn't want, and he said it at the time, we can't be spending that much money on a quarterback. Well, Rick Spielman, the Wilfs, spend that much money. Let's go. And that's when the defense started to go doop, 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 and slowly went down. 2018, they had a great defense, but that quarterback was not ready. Couldn't put them over the top like he thought. Now, part of that is, did Mike want him there? And did he want, to be there with Mike? Didn't look that way. Didn't look that way at all. When it takes 4 years before quarterback asks you, hey, coach, can we watch film together? That's just, Mike, you screwed up on that one. You should have done your damnedest, whether you liked the man or not. If you believed in your players and you believed in the fans and bringing Minnesota that title that we have yet to get, you should have done everything within your power to make that relationship work. Not sit there and sulk about your defense. Granted, you were right on everything. Throughout the article, Mike's right. But you need to make it work. And unfortunately, you didn't. Well, that brings us to Kirk Cousins. Now, but first, like I said, this, I think, is where the toilet gets flushed, or that big, massive turd of what's starting to happen happens. And it happened with first the signing of Kirk Cousins. Mike didn't want that. Well, you have to deal with it. But at the time, all the way up until that time, Mike and Rick Spielman's relationship was really, really good. They were working together great. But now is when Rick goes against what Mike wants. Now, as a GM, you have some responsibility to go with what's best with the team and not just what Mike wants, but you also got to take that into your thinking as well. And this is where the marriage between the two, this is the first major hiccup. Then we move on. We get to, the whole relationship there, which was not good between the two. Mike felt they're putting too much resources towards one player at the expense of his defense, and he had won with his defense and a whole slew of players on the offensive side. But it just festered, and it's more and more festered. He had come in at this point, and he had saved the franchise from where it was. Leslie Frazier's an absolutely wonderful human being, but the team, the squad, was at a low point. He brought it back. So he gets there. Well, who was the GM during that time when the team was at its low point? It was Rick Spielman. Well, now Rick is feeling his oats and starting to take over more and more as this goes on. And this is Dave's opinion. I could be wrong. Very well, probably am. I don't know the whole story. But he starts to feel more and more like that. And then we get into the 2021 draft. And in the 2021 draft, Rick Spielman drafts Christian Darrisaw in the first round. We need a defense, but he picks Christian Darrisaw. Cool. Find that offensive tackle that's going to be with you the next 10 or 15 years. That's going to protect the quarterback, no matter who he is. Absolutely. They don't grow on trees, as we know. Christian Darrisaw's developed into a top 5 offensive tackle in the NFL, and they are few and far between. That's a good draft pick. Well, we didn't have any second rounders, but we had a whole slew of third ones. And Mike is telling Rick, we need to go for defense. Well, then we find out that Rick tried to trade up for Justin Fields before Darrisaw. Well, good thing that didn't happen, because what has Justin as Mike says, what has Justin Fields done in this league? Not a whole lot. He's now back up in Pittsburgh. But we get to that third round, and Mike is saying, I need defense. I need defense. There's people we've got that can start. We've identified them. This is what I want. My coaching staff has got with your people. We're all good to go. This is where we need to go. And Rick Spielman says, well, I'm taking Kellen Mond. I watched his interview this morning. He sounds good. Or however he went and evaluated him. And it's just, Mike was pissed. And Viking Jerome, you're 100% correct. You're talking massive egos that are starting to butt heads. Started a few years earlier when they signed Kirk Cousins. Now it's coming to full fruition. Mike's pissed. There was no, Spielman didn't talk about doing this whatsoever with him, didn't give him a heads up. Mike leaves the draft room for the rest of the day. Rest of the round, the day. Day 3 it would have been. Or day 2. Leaves it. And Mike is right. He picked up 4 backup players in round 3. Kellen Mond, who's no longer in the league. Chaz Surratt, who's a special teamer bouncing around the league. Wyatt Davis at guard, who we all hoped would have been good, who's out of the league. And Patrick Jones, who is hanging on by his teeth. He's right, 4 backup players. At best, backup players. It happened. This is where it's like a relationship, you know. Suddenly, one side feels the other one just cheated on him. It's not going well at this point. That's 2021. So it starts. From what I gather, they haven't spoken together since. And we know at the end of the tenure, they didn't speak at all to each other. Supposedly Spielman's reached out with text. Mike just puts it on block. Doesn't care. Hey, you get that way. And then 2022, Mike loses his son, which he quasi blames on the Vikings for firing him. My question is, why was he, who fired him? Usually the head coach is in control of his staff, but we know the Minnesota Vikings don't quite work that way. So it happens. And that's a shame. I don't care who you are as a human being. You lose your wife 6, 7 years before, and then you lose your son. That's got to be killer. And this is the point where I think Mike's literally starting to lose it. We'll find out. North Face, I don't know what you talk about. Arif's an outstanding writer. If somebody else is referencing him. Arif has been very good for a long time. But I think this is where Mike's starting to lose it. Completely. He feels betrayed. It was the final straw by Rick Spielman. And he feels betrayed. And everything's going to absolute dog doo-doo in the building. Part of it's his fault. It's how he's acting. It's how he's acted over the years, how he's responded. I taught my kids, life is a series of choices. And it is. And the decisions you make on those choices have ramifications. He's dealing with them. Maybe in wrong choices, maybe wrong way to deal with stuff. But he had to go because it was. And those were choices. Now, Mike had a lot happen to him over the years. Judd Zolgad talked about it. He wonders if it's some sort of coaching PTSD because of all the things that happened, all the years that happened at that time. Teddy blowing up his knee, dealing with Adrian Peterson's issues, Everson Griffin, you know, And all that sort of stuff, corner issues, this and that, and all this starts, and it starts, you see him start to sort of crumble, which is a shame. And it happens to some of the best people. But it happens, and it's a shame. Well, he's now in Dallas. He's 68 years old. He doesn't expect to ever be a head coach again. But his daughter says he's finally happy, which makes me question the timing of this article and what they were trying to achieve. He's finally happy. Why did he spew all of this right now? Should have been, hey, Mark, how you doing? Let's go for a beer. And no, I'm not going to talk about it. And that would have been that. Or, hey, I apologize to the fans how it all ended. Sorry. But I'm not going any deeper with this. But no, that's not Mike. Like I said, he's a straight shooter. And when he gets fired up, he's going to tell you. He did it on press conferences all the time. And of course, he's down there hoping to prove that he's not a lousy coach because people think he's a lousy coach. People, for the most part, know he's not a lousy coach. When it comes to coaching football, he's very good at it. He's the third winningest coach in, well, not including Kevin O'Connell, in Minnesota Vikings history. He won a lot of games, especially prior to Kirk Cousins. But he's bitter and he's angry. And I'm going to tell you, Mike, you can't harbor that. You can't hold that. You can't stroke it. You can't grow it. It will eat you up. It will cause health problems. It's time to move on. It is what it is. And hopefully you have. Like you and Eric Kendricks sitting down and talking it out, you need to do that as well, in my opinion. Get this back to where, the basics, where you're teaching players how to play good ball, where you're mentoring coaches on how to devise good plays, good ball, good schemes, and how to better interact with their players, how to better coach. You talked about teaching when you came to Minnesota. Matthew Culler said he never learned more than he did from you. Those are things you need to focus on. You need to focus on and move forward. Build it, grow it. Make that your legacy. Not the spewing of the anger and the bitterness. That does you no good, and it does us no good as Vikings fans. And that's the biggest disappointment. We're fans. We want to look at the better side of things and the hope, and you brought us hope for quite a few years. And then because of your actions and Spielman's actions and Cousins' actions and everybody else's, it all got pissed down the drain. That's what it is. Sorry, Mike. It is what it is. So you've got to be able to do that. And I wish you all the success in the world down in Dallas on the defensive side. I do not wish them on the offensive side, though, because I want to see Dallas lose. But that's just Dave. It is what it is, but just the timing of this article just sort of irked me, especially after last week's with Flores. I don't know about you guys, but why? Why do we have to put up with this BS as Vikings fans? We shouldn't. Well, thankfully, the Wolves came in and they gave us something new. The warm fuzzies, the collaboration, and all the buzzwords that we heard since then. And we'll see if it works. We're in the year 3 of it. Year 1 was pretty good. It was the proof that, hey, It wasn't the players. The players got us to a 13-4 record. But last year, we had injuries. They tried. They were close. But are they going to take us over the next hump? And then, of course, this year we start out and we're also super excited about our new J.J. McCarthy. And he gets hurt, and so we're going to see. It is what it is. Hopefully, Mike Zimmer learns, Brian Flores learns, everybody learns to be better. You should constantly be trying to improve your position, as best officer I ever worked for used to say. Hopefully it will. And hopefully we can put this to rest. But like I said, the timing of it, the tone of it, makes me wonder.
Good afternoon, David. It's 4:41 p.m.
As I don't know if you heard that, but my Alexa went off. How, why, I don't know, but she did. But Zimmer is reunited with Kendricks. Linval Joseph's down there now, as well as the man right there, Dalvin Cook. We'll see how it goes. I guess some players liked him. We'll find out. But now on to, instead of 2.5 years in the past, we're going on to present day with Team 2. We're talking the roster. It's been set. And why not start with the QBs? Quarterback room, we know who we've got. We've got Sam Darnold, Nick Mullins, Brett Rippon. J.J. McCarthy is on season-ending IR for the torn knee meniscus, which he had fully repaired. He's going to come back with bells on next year, like brand new, hopefully. This week, we find out that Jaron Hall initially made the roster, but then was released, and he is still available. Matt Corral was released. And this is what you got. It's my spreadsheet. You're going to see this throughout. It is what it is. We picked up Brett Rippon, who has plenty of star football lineage, obviously. We'll see how he does. He's going to have to be developed. He's an emergency. He came from the McVay system, so he knows pretty much some of this. We'll see. But he's your third quarterback. I heard KOC basically saying that if he had to go to his third quarterback, he trusts Rippon more to succeed than Hall. And also another interesting bit is that they released Hall because they wanted to focus on QB development, and they didn't want to focus it on with Hall as much, but they want to focus it on with J.J. McCarthy, which is, yes, do it. All this year, J.J. McCarthy should be number one. Hall, unfortunately, and he originally said he wants him back to develop. Hall, unfortunately, is a free agent right now. He made it through waivers. There's nobody claiming him. We'll find out what happens. So if Rippon's better than Hall, which I assume they gathered, they went with Rippon, and Hall's left to walk. Now, Hall isn't going to be a super stud in the NFL. We didn't think he was. He's a fifth-round quarterback, an old one. Even though he had the 2 years of mission, he's an older quarterback. I don't think you're going to, even developing him, you're going to develop him into a backup. I think that's a ceiling. Rippon is probably a backup. So all that energy spent on developing him needs to be funneled into developing JJ. McCarthy is the guy. And hopefully he's attached at the hip of Kevin O'Connell throughout the year so he learns everything he can, minus running around and doing the steps and stuff. But we'll see. Dalton, you can see him going to L.A.? Possibly. But it is what it is. KOC's got to... This is his chance, because if he finishes with another lousy season, things are going to get real hot real quick. But he's got to build up the plan. They've executed the plan. The plan was 3 years, build, 4th year, finish it off, get the new quarterback. They've got that. Put that plan, stick to the plan, work the plan, put it into fruition. And I think we're still good on that one. Jonathan says we got a backup and a playbook from the other team. Could be. Grandizer says Ripon was really bad with the Rams. So bad, didn't only suit up one game. They've seen enough. We'll find out. And Aaron's talking Kwesi. We'll talk about Kwesi here. But it is what it is. Now, it's all up to this guy this year. We'll get into that top 10, who's the most important. But Sam Darnold, hopefully he can stay healthy. Sam Darnold has a history of not playing the entire season. We'll see. We'll find out. Sean talked about how Darnold get the baggage, but he's had a 28th and 31st O-line rank for the majority of his career. That's correct. 49ers was 18th, really. Even with Trent Williams, number 1. Well, hopefully our O-line is improved, at least middle of the road. They are forecast to be the 11th best, which, as you know me, I love my round bellies, tells you how weak it is across the NFL if our O-line is 11th best. But it is what it is. It's spread across 32 teams, so you work with that. Nick Mullins, of course, is the backup. We all know Nick. It's going to be exciting, no matter what. That brings us to the running backs. Running back room is as follows: Aaron Jones, Ty Chandler, C.J. Ham. Just 3. That was a surprise. We all know Kene Nwangu was released. He was waived. He was picked up by waivers by the New Orleans Saints and promptly failed the physical. What's wrong with Kene? They failed the physical. I don't know. We'll find out. Now, during the press conference this week, KOC was asked who's going to do kick returns, and he said Myles Gaskin is. He's earned it. He's good. He does a lot more of everything than Kene does. Okay, cool. Well, Myles Gaskin made the practice squad, which is the tan-colored on the deal. They can only call him up from the practice squad so many times before he becomes part of the 53. I think that is the plan. And at that point, they'll bump somebody off the 53. But as of right now, they're playing the game of call up, come down, whether it be for money or to have sort of that extra player in the pocket. But we'll find out. Anthony McDaniel says, if KOC whispers to Darnold and Darnold balls out, KOC will be the Vikings head coach for the foreseeable future. I think so too. Grandizer says Gaskin is a decent RB4. Better at catching the ball, and he's better at pass blocking than Kene was. And I think that's what got him put in that position. But Kane's out there. Anybody wants to sign him, can sign him. Like I said, I don't know what the deal is with the physical. We'll find out. And, of course, the stud, Aaron Jones. Hopefully we'll have a good year, not get hurt. And Ty Chandler backing him up and his development going as well. That takes us to, didn't want that one, but the wide receivers. This one's pretty good, as we all know. We got JJ. Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Jalen Naylor, Brandon Proud, Tristan Jackson, and Trent Sherfield made it. Trent Sherfield was the 6th wide receiver kept. He had a good preseason. They like the fact that he can block in the game. That's a good thing. You want him to block. And the fact that he can, that's a good thing. He's more experienced. Okay, I'm cool with that. You have Jordan Addison, who's right now dealing with an ankle injury. They haven't been specific on the ankle, but the rumors coming out is it's a high ankle sprain, which might delay us seeing him. Will he be ready for Sunday's game? I don't know. Dalton Gaskin's on the practice squad officially right now. Latest I saw. Yeah, Northfield. Yeah, Kwesi says he's going to be the RB3 and kick returner. He's on the practice squad. That's why I had him. The deal is, we had some people move off and on as the week went on, not just, the next day. Everybody picked the next day. Well, the day after, some people fell off and new people came on. It's what I call a bottom of the roster churn, and it's going to happen all season long. We'll find out. Now to tight ends. Tight ends are set. Josh Oliver, Johnny Munt, Nick Muse, TJ Hawkinson starting the deal on the pup. TJ, according to KOC, is running routes right now. Doing good, but they want to be extra safe and give him that extra month and have him come back week 5-ish, be available then to come back. And hopefully that's the case. That's good. Cool. Trey Knox is on IR, season-ending IR. I don't know what happened to him. That happened during the summer sometime, I think. No. Yes, Dalton. The practice squad is not the active roster, but you can pull up people from the practice squad on a game-by-game basis up to, I think it's 3 times, and then you have to keep them on the 53. It's an extra way to stash that extra player. They play games with it. Right now, he's not counting against the 53. When he gets pulled up for a game, he'll be on the game day roster for that day, and then he goes back down, and he doesn't count again. It's like having a 54th player, if you understand what I'm saying. It's a way they manipulate it and get a little bit better numbers or numbers that they like. They're choosing from a bigger pool, but they can only have the 53 legally on the roster, and they can only, suit up, 46 or whatever it is on game day. That's the game they're playing. That's crazy. But Hawkinson is looking like he's on the mend, ready to go. We'll see him week 5. Good. Tackles. Well, we're getting the O-line. Tackles and interior O-line. And you see here, Dalton Reisner's on IR, scheduled to return. We'll find out. Jeremy Flax hurt himself. He's on IR out for the season. We have Tyrese Robinson, who made the practice squad. And there's another one, like Gaskins, you might see pop up on an occasion. But we'll find out. And we added later this week in that roster bottom churn, guy named Ricky Lee III. Looked him up. There's nothing there. They're bottom of the roster guys. So nothing to get super excited. He isn't taking anybody's job. But somebody who is backing up is Walter Rouse. Walter Rouse had a good rookie preseason through the games, and he made the team. He was kept on the active. Same with Michael Juergens. They join David Quisenberry as your basically primary backups so far. And it is what it is. And Dan Feeney as well. That makes, they kept 9 on the active, and it is what it is. Steven, interior O-line worries us together. It is one of the weak points, and I'll get to that shortly. Northview says Harry is a project at tight end, but I like how he's looked. Yes, and he was kept on the practice squad, so they can develop that even more. Maybe get something. We'll find out. Sean says Kirk, better QB than Sam. Is quick to release. We'll see lots of receivers receiving the ball, separation, full stride more often. Big yak here. Hope so. Kirk is a good quarterback. Don't doubt that. I hope Sam, with KOC in his ears, becomes a good quarterback. Now let's get to from one side of the round bellies to the other. Interior defensive line. Right now we have Harrison Phillips, Jonathan Bullard, Jerry Tillery, Levi Drake Rodriguez, Taki Taimani, and Jalen Redmond. Now, the starters, Phillips, Bullard, Tillery, are older guys in 1 year. Contracts, if I can remember correctly, this is all the last year for those guys. We're going to have people in place, and the development of LDR and Taki and hopefully Jalen helps, and we'll probably target somebody in next year's draft. But as of right now, those guys made the squad, and that's a good thing. This guy had a heck of a preseason. This guy, Taki, had a good preseason as well, and Jalen did his work to make the team, and that's a good thing. I appreciate that. All across the board, I like when people push it out. Now, since we're doing the whole defensive line, that also includes the edges for me. I know technically they're outside linebackers, but they're playing on the ball. Makes them an edge. They're pass rushing. We got Jonathan Grenard, Andrew Van Ginkel, Dallas Turner. I think this is greatly improved over Daniil Hunter last year. Daniil Hunter was outstanding, 16.5 sacks, but it was just Daniil. They kept Jihad Ward, which sort of surprised me, and Gabriel Murphy's designated to return, UDFA out of UCLA. Andre Carter was kept on the practice squad, as well as Bo Richter. Mr. Owen Porter was released. Don't know what he's doing today. Hopefully not selling insurance or bagging groceries. But if he is, I hope he lives a wonderful and fantastic life. But will we see Andre Carter? Hopefully he'll develop more. Gabriel Murphy, once he comes back, hopefully will be developed as well. And we want these young guys developed because it's going to be important. Talk about corners. This one was a hard starter because we lost, of course, Kyrie Jackson and then Mekhi Blackman for the season, and that is what it was, and we started bringing in people. We got Stephon Gilmore, who's now our number 1 corner, Byron Murphy, Shaq Griffin. Hopefully Shaq Griffin's ready to go. He had a hammy injury during the preseason. He should hopefully be ready to go come Sunday next week. Caleb Evans, they kept, Fabian Moreau, and Dwight Nudie McGlothern. McGlothern had a great preseason, and I'm glad we kept him. Yes, he shows promise, and that's one of the guys you hope Flores, molds into that perfect corner that he likes. We'll see. And hopefully Flores helps with the development of Caleb Evans another year. Hopefully gets it. I hate finding, hey, we go for this corner. It looks great out of college. We draft him. Everybody's excited. And then go, which most of them do. But that's it. Hopefully, though, he develops because we're going to need these guys later because all the older ones, you're looking at into contract type deals. Gilmore's on a 1 year. Murphy, this is his last year. And I think Shaq Griffin was also a 1 year contract. It is what it is. Bring us to our safeties. Our safeties we knew this was rock solid. We got a great safety room. There was no changes, basically. Jay Ward made it as a fifth safety. We didn't know if that was going to happen. Najee Thompson had a knee procedure this week. I didn't grab the picture, but he was walking on crutches. He should hopefully, heal up over the season. We'll get him back next year as a special teams ace. And Bobby McCain was retained on the practice squad. Ergo talking about we're the seventh oldest average age by player, 27 years, 4 months, 23 days. I was thinking we were a third of the oldest, but a big chunk of that comes from 3 players. Harrison Smith's one of them. Gilmore is one of them. And our long snapper is the other. You change those guys out and we suddenly become young. But that's okay. And yes, Northfield, R.I.P. Kyrie. It is a shame he would have become a starter. Hey, if you think about it, in a corner room, you would most likely had Kyrie Jackson and Mekhi Blackman were expected to play oodles of snaps, if not start. So it is what it is. Bobby McCain was cut. Why was he cut? I don't know, but he was brought back. I think this is one of those deals where you've got to cut somebody and you want to bring back, and this is that sort of deal. I think they, come down and they settle on like 60 players and they go, we still got cut 7 more. Who can we bring back? And I think he fell in that bucket. But he's there and he'll help during the week. And then we have off-ball linebackers. These are the guys that literally play off-ball. These are your middle guys. Everything went as expected. Cashman, Pace, Grugier Hill, and Brian Asmoah. Northfield, we'll find out on the new kickoff rules as it develops. If all the special teamers were hiding their stuff, special team coaches, and now we're going to see it starting week 1. We'll find out how it develops over the season, whether special teams ace will be a thing or not. It is on punts, and that's where Najee was the gunner, so we'll find out. And whether it's just worth it for a punt gunner, I don't know. We'll find out. We'll see. Yes, Anthony, you're right. The age range is only about 2 years. It's not that big a deal. There's no team that's like, hey, their average age is 35. It isn't. Dallas Gant also made the practice squad. We all wanted to see that. That's good. He was brought back. And so he can develop as well. I'm cool with that. And if needed, if somebody gets hurt, he can move into that 4th spot. Now on to the specialists. As we all know, they went pretty much as we thought they would. Will Riker won the kicking. He only missed 2 field goals all off season. Yeah, baby. Ryan Wright won the punting contest. I thought he actually punted better than Vernon, but he's also the placeholder. That's important. You've got to know how to do that and have the chemistry. And of course, Andrew DePaulo, the oldest player on the team, is our Pro Bowl long snapper. They want to make sure all that's kept together. Works great. It should. And you want that. So that is. Overall roster strategy, in my opinion, is develop these young players because you're going to need them. We'll find out. We're going to need them. Looking ahead, areas of concern, interior O-line, and defensive line development, and interior, basically on the interior defensive line. Want this man to keep developing J.J. McCarthy as much as possible. Get everything you can put into him this year, absolutely, on the mental side, on the coaching, game planning, the whole works, the language, everything you can. Have him do it. Make him an assistant coach type deal. You are now my mentor. You are my Padawan. You are going to learn. So next year when you come back 100% healthy and can run on that knee, we're hitting the ground running. But it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a challenge for everybody because not only do they have to develop, they have to win. But that's why they get paid the big bucks, right? Well, that is your 2024 NFL or Minnesota Vikings roster as of this week. And like I said, the bottom end will churn all season long. Will absolutely turn. And that brings us to theme 3. The 10 most important players on your Minnesota Vikings. Now, I took this from, and I want to give shout out to Joe Nelson, who is now part of the Sports Illustrated staff. Sports Illustrated has changed how they're doing things. It's not just exclusively Will Raggets anymore. You'll even see some Matthew Collar posts on it. But Joe Nelson is one of their gang of writers that focus on the Vikings, and he made a good piece a week ago. And I forgot to include the link in the description. I'll need to go back and add that. But I want to give him a shout out, and I thought this would make a great segment. And here, he's going to talk, or his opinion is, and mine, I'll inject mine, is to explain the concept, ranking the 10 most important players, Vikings players, for the upcoming season. And this, by importance, I think that's what he means. It's going to mean the most to the Vikings' success. We'll start backwards. Number 10 on your big board. I should be able to do a Casey Kasem voice. Number 10, Jordan Addison. All right, Jordan, we all know how good Jordan Addison is, and he seemed to have improved over the offseason. He's gotten stronger. He's worked on his route releases. The whole works. He's looking like almost a Justin Jefferson clone. That's great, fantastic. And then he does something stupid. Gets popped for a DUI in July. That won't be resolved anytime soon because the NFL waits till after the legal process works through. His court date is the day after the Jets game. So it's a while out. Plus, he's dealing with that ankle injury. I think it's high ankle sprain. We may not see him the first 2 weeks. But he is going to be important for this season because the more availability he has to be out there, the more of a difference and game changer he could be. Justin Jefferson is going to be doubled and tripled all season long, minimum doubled. Well, that leaves Jordan Addison more opportunity and Jalen Naylor as wide receiver 3, that as well. But Jordan Addison, we know, has the skills to break things absolutely open, and he could get 1,000+ yards and 10 touchdowns, and that would be freaking awesome. Hey, David. He's number 10. Number 9, Ivan Pace Gang Jr. Pace is going into a second year with the green dot. He's calling the defense. Actually called by Flores, but he's orchestrating it on the field. He had an outstanding rookie season last year. He doesn't care that he's small, doesn't care that he's built like a bowling ball. He's going to go through your face. Ask the guards that faced him last year. He is. We let Jordan Hicks walk, and he's now the man that's going to have to step up as your captain, not whether he's got the C or not, as running that defense. He's number 9. That brings us to number 8. Brian O'Neill. Expectations are high for him. He's now a year and a half from his Achilles injury. He was looking good in the preseason. Hopefully he returns to his top 5 status on the right side. This will help not only in pass protection, but in the run game. David Quesenberry is his backup, primary backup. We'll see how that goes. On to number 7, lucky number 7, this man, Josh Metellus. The man that can do everything. Brian Flores saw him last year and said, well, yeah, you're a safety, you're a special teams guy, but I see these skills in you, and I'm going to use them in all these different ways. Can you do it? And, of course, he said, sure, coach, anything. And he did. That was amazing. The Swiss Army knife of the defense. Arguably one of the most valuable players on the defense because of all of that. We'll see. Yeah, Sean, opposing defenses are going to have to pick their poison between Jets, Addison, Naylor, etc. TJ Hawkinson when he gets back. Yep. Number 6, the newbie. That is the old guy, Stephon Gilmore, coming in as the presumed quarterback 1. And he is. Now, will he return to his defensive player of the year status? No. He's up there in age, but he's got that wisdom. And can he pull off, like I said before, Patrick Peterson type of year, where he's smart and plays well and does things that, amaze you for a 34-year-old cornerback? Yeah, I hope so. It's going to be, if he can do that and help lock down his side of the ball or the number 1 wide receivers, that's a good thing. Anthony Bryan's still under 30, I believe, or right at about that. I'd have to look it up, but that's a good question. Then we get on to number 5, Jonathan Grenard. Jonathan Grenard is a good edge rusher. He directly replaces Danielle Hunter. He's been under Van Ginkel's been under the Flores system. Grenard can play this. He is going to be the X factor. If he has success, he had 10 and a half sacks last year. If that goes up, stays there or goes up, and I think it'll go up because of how Flores devises things, he's going to be a key component. And by him going up, getting that attention, Van Ginkel on the other side does it, and Dallas Turner does it. This defense is going to be wicked good, as they would say in New England. That brings us to the 4th most important person. Dalton says 28, blown Achilles at 26. Okay, thank you, Dalton. Appreciate that. 4th most important, this guy, Garrett Bradbury. Garrett, my Garrett. Garrett is a great run blocker. Has been his entire time he's here. It's the pass blocking that's been the issue. And the fact that he's been a little light in the pants and can be pushed around. Last year, I noticed the noticeable change in pass blocking styles that helped. I've talked about that with the footwork, whether it be the padding or the speed bump style, and he went to the speed bump style, and that helped. But if he can still be picked up by an interior defensive lineman and forklifted back in the quarterback's lap, that's not a good thing. He's supposedly put on weight. That's good. All right, that's the physical portion of him. But what makes him the 4th most important person on this is not the physical. It's the mental. He's calling blocking. He's identifying the mic. He's setting the blocking. And it's the coordination between him, Brandel on his left, Ingram on his right, that they work as a unit, and further out by your two very good offensive tackles. But those guys in the middle work as a unit because sometimes we're going to, shade over this way, block that, however it's going to do. It's all going to be up to him as the focus and the leader of those three, and he needs to be at the top of his game. If he is, Vikings offense is going to sing. As long as Darnold's completing passes, and he does that at a high rate when he's not pressured. So if those three are working the way they're supposed to, they're protecting Darnold. They're producing runs up the inside. He is that key to that. Dalton says the linchpin, and that's a good term for it. Then comes number 3, most important, Christian Darrisaw. Just got paid big bucks, big bucks. Good for him. He's going to be protecting Sam Darnold's blind side and helping with running to the left. Can he do it? I think he's top 5 offensive tackle in the league. I don't see why not. If he's successful at that, Vikings are going places, especially in conjunction if Bradbury and he's successful, and then we have O'Neal before. This offense could be very, 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 very good. We'll see. But as we all know, the most important person on the field is the quarterback. He comes in at the number 2 most important. Dave, why is he number 2? Hey, I didn't make this list. Joe did. But I happen to agree with him. Sam Darnold needs to be able to function competently. If he can do that, if he doesn't fall back on his proclivity to be bad under pressure, this Vikings offense can score, can drive, and can win games. Even with our schedule, they could be good. Whether he's the leader that J.J. McCarthy is, no, but he can become a key to success, obviously, because he touches the ball every time on an offensive snap, to this being a successful season. And we hope he is. Why? 1, because it'll make the season better. 2, he'll get a high-paying job and a starting job someplace else after the season. And we want that for him, because success is success, and it breeds success across the board. We'll find out. Aussie Viking, you're thinking Dallas Turner gets 12.5 sacks? I would love to see that. Yes, I would. Let's mark it down. You remind me at the end of the season, if he has 12.5 sacks, we'll celebrate that. And it also means Grenard and Van Ginkel will also have great times. But who's the number 1 most important player towards success this season? Only the best wide receiver in the NFL, Mr. Justin Jefferson. Now, why is JJ, Mr. Jets, more important than Sam Darnold, the quarterback? Well, last year, he had 25 receptions over 20-plus yards in just 10 games. You extrapolate that out, that's going to put, 32, 33? More than that, 35? 2022 MVP finalist and offensive player in a year. If he's playing at that level or better, that means the Vikings are producing and winning games. And we want that. And he's going to be a security blanket to Sam Darnold. And he did a lot of that with Nick Mullins. So, if ever all these guys stay healthy, including Justin Jefferson, this team could be a surprise. I know Vegas says 6.5 wins. They could be. Who knows? Vegas generally knows their business. But boy, to me, you get a top 10 defense, probably top 5 defense. Hopefully a top 10 offense. Even though the schedule's tough, no, we can go out there and compete. We can compete hard. And that's what we want to see. We want them competing hard, and we'll see that. Now, that was Joe's top 10. There's a couple other players I wanted to add myself. First one, Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones is an established runner who still seems to have quite a bit left in the tank and more wear on those tires. He's going to be motivated, especially when we play Green Bay. He's going to be important because if we get a consistent running game going, boom, baby, that's going to help the pass game, et cetera, score more points, make more drives. Everybody's happy. So I would add Aaron Jones as well. And then hear about week 5, 6, or 7. Whenever TJ Hawkinson comes back, I think he's going to be the security blanket that puts the frosting on the cake, to mix some metaphors. I think Sam Darnold's going to have a man crush over him, like Patrick Mahomes does over Kelsey. We're good. And I think those are your most important players on the team. Now, do you guys have anybody? You think anybody there is wrong on that list? Shouldn't be on the list. Should be on the list. Northfield says you can win Super Bowls with a top 10 offense and defense. Yes, you can, Northfield. Yes, you can. And the higher up, generally the better. Generally, the offenses are generally top 5. But we'll see. That's a generality. It doesn't always happen, case. But is there anybody else you'd put on there? Oh, I got one more. Just one. Will Reichard. Your place kicker generally scores a third of your points. You want him to be dead on. You don't want a Joseph who misses extra points. You want them to be kicking in the 90-plus percentile range, not in the 80s or at 80. It is what it is. So, Sean says, if they stay healthy, produce like they can, block better, O-line, we may have our offense on the field longer, resting the defense. It's a good thing. Yes, that's what they call that, complementary football, where the offense, takes its time, progresses efficiently down the field, defense gets a break, offense scores, defense on the field, defense kicks some butt, offense back on, rinse and repeat. We'll see that. Anthony, you think Naylor should be on that list as the 10 most important? It's an interesting take. I wouldn't put a wide receiver 3 on the list, but we'll find out. We will find out. Well, everybody, I want to thank you for joining me today. You have been absolutely great. And like I said, next week on Saturday, Darren will be back. He's supposed to be back up in Yellowknife. He gets back there Saturday morning. And we're going to do our normal regular season where we get to the preview the game against the New York Giants. And we'll go through stats. Not that there's a whole lot of stats in the first few weeks, but we'll go through that and we'll break it all down. Northfius asks who's watching LSU USC. Should be an interesting game. I watched football all yesterday. It's an interesting day. But, again, Thank you very much. I hope you have a good week. A very good week. Enjoy the holiday here down in the lower 48. Stay safe, stay sound, enjoy good friends and family. And we'll see you tomorrow night on the Real Forno Show. So join us then. What do we say? We say, SKOL Vikings!
Like, subscribe, and ring the bell, and rate us on your favorite podcast aggregator. Darren and Dave, thank you for watching this episode of Two Old Bloggers. We look forward to seeing you on every show on the new Vikings First and SKOL. You can find our podcasts as part of the Fans First Sports Network. Sports takes for the fan, from the fan. SKOL, everybody!